Good morning, Year 5, and welcome back to our fourth Destination Reader session. Today we are going to continue reading Matilda by Roald Dahl. Remember, you will have your keywords in red, which are important words to help you to learn. It's very important that when we think about our questions, we use a range of different keywords. In blue, there will be questions for you to answer, and any text in green will indicate time for you to write down your notes and ideas. Before we make a start, please check that you have a copy of the story, a strategy prompt sheet, a pencil, and a piece of paper or your home learning book. Press pause now, make sure you have all of your equipment, and then come back and press play once you are ready. Brilliant. Let's begin. We're going to remind ourselves why good readers ask questions. Good readers ask questions as they read because it helps them to understand what is happening in the story. Asking questions also keeps the reader interested and makes them want to read more. I have loads of questions when I read, and it helps me to think about what else I would like to know about what's going on in the text, and it also makes me want to read a lot more. Vocabulary. We're going to have a look at today's vocabulary. My turn, jay's feather. Your turn. Jay's feather. This is the feather of a bird, a blue jay, said to have the ability to brighten up the darkest of places. My turn, rakish. Your turn. Rakish, which means to display a dashing, jaunty, or disrespectful quality or appearance. Our third word is skulk. Your turn. Skulk, which means to keep out of sight, typically with a sinister or cowardly motive. Brim. Your turn. Brim, which is the projecting edge at the bottom of a hat. Our final word, my turn, monk. Your turn. Monk, which is a member of a religious community of men. Great, now that we've had a look at some of our key words and vocabulary, we can move on to today's session. We're going to begin reading. We're on page 24, The Hat and the Superglue. I will read and you will follow along. We will stop at points to ask questions. The following morning, just before the father left for his beastly second-hand car garage, Matilda slipped into the cloakroom and got hold of the hat he wore each day to work. She had to stand on her toes and reach up as high as she could with a walking stick in order to hook the hat off the peg, and even then she only just made it. The hat itself was one of those flat-topped pork pie jobs with a jay's feather stuck in the hat band. Oh, jay's feather. I remember that was one of my key words. It's the feather of a bird. And Mr. Wormwood was very proud of it. He thought it gave him a rakish, daring look. Another one of my key words. Have a think if you can remember what that key word means. Especially when he wore it at an angle with his loud checked jacket and green tie. Matilda, holding the hat in one hand and a thin tube of superglue in the other, proceeded to squeeze a line of glue very neatly all around the inside rim of the hat. Then she carefully hooked the hat back onto the peg with the walking stick. She timed this operation very carefully, applying the glue just as her father was getting up from the breakfast table. Mr. Wormwood didn't notice anything when he put the hat on, but when he arrived at the garage, he couldn't get it off. Superglue is very powerful stuff, so powerful it will take your skin off if you pull too hard. Mr. Wormwood didn't want to be scalped, so he had to keep the hat on his head the whole day long, even when putting sawdust in gearboxes and fiddling the mileages of cars with his electric drill. If we stop, we can see on our picture before that Matilda is using something to grab the hat from the hook, and we can see exactly what she was planning. In an effort to save face, he adopted a casual attitude, hoping that his staff would think that he actually meant to keep his hat on all day long, just for the heck of it, like gangsters do in the films. I'm going to stop there. I have some questions. What is Matilda planning to do with Mr. Wormwood's hat? So as I've read on, I understand what she planned to do. My second question was, how will Mr. Wormwood end up getting the hat off his head? So the answer to my first question has been answered, but my second question hasn't. I would like to know how Mr. Wormwood will end up getting the hat off his head. I wonder. If superglue is so strong, how is he going to manage to do that? Let's continue. When he got home that evening, he still couldn't get the hat off. Don't be silly, his wife said. Come here, I'll take it off for you. She gave the hat a sharp yank. Mr. Wormwood let out a yell that rattled the window panes. Ow! Ow! He screamed. Don't do that! Let go! You'll take half the skin off my forehead. Matilda, nestling in her usual chair, was watching this performance over the rim of her book with some interest. What's the matter, Daddy? She said. Has your head suddenly swollen or something? The father glared at his daughter with deep suspicion but said nothing. How could he? Mrs. Wormwood said to him, It must be superglue. It couldn't be anything else. That'll teach you to go round playing with nasty stuff like that. I expect you were trying to stick another feather in your hat. I haven't touched the flaming stuff, Mr. Wormwood shouted. He turned and looked again at Matilda, who looked back at him with large, innocent brown eyes. Mrs. Wormwood said to him, You should read the label on the tube before you start messing with dangerous products. Always follow the instructions on the label. What in heaven's name are you talking about, you stupid witch? Mr. Wormwood shouted, clutching the brim of his hat to stop anyone trying to pull it off again. Do you think I'm so stupid I'd glue this thing to my head on purpose? I'm going to stop again. I have some more questions. I wonder if the Wormwoods will realise that Matilda stuck the superglue to Mr. Wormwood's hat. And when did Matilda get hold of the superglue without anyone seeing? I remember at the beginning of the book that she was about 4 or 5 years old. She's very, very, very clever to be planning such things without anyone seeing. I wonder how she got hold of it. Let's continue. I will read and you will follow along, and we're going to continue stopping at points to ask questions. Matilda said, There's a boy down the road who's got some superglue on his finger without knowing it, and then he put his finger to his nose. Mr. Wormwood jumped. What happened to him? He spluttered. The finger got stuck inside his nose, Matilda said, and he had to go around like that for a week. People kept saying to him, Stop picking your nose, and he couldn't do anything about it. He looked an awful fool. Serve him right, Mrs. Wormwood said. He shouldn't have put his finger up there in the first place. It's a nasty habit. If all children had superglue put on their fingers, they'd soon stop doing it. Matilda said, Grown-ups do it too, Mummy. I saw you doing it yesterday in the kitchen. That's quite enough from you, Mrs. Wormwood said, turning pink. Mr. Wormwood had to keep his hat on all through supper in front of the television. He looked ridiculous and he stayed very silent. When he went up to bed, he tried again to get the thing off, and so did his wife, but it wouldn't budge. "How am I going to have my shower?" he demanded. "You'll just have to do without it, won't you?" his wife told him. And later on, as she watched her skinny little husband skulking around the bedroom in his purple striped pajamas with a pork pie hat on his head, she thought how stupid he looked. Hardly the kind of man a wife dreams about, she told herself. I'm going to stop again. I have some more questions. Why is Mr. Wormwood agreeing with what Matilda is saying more than before? Sorry, that's why is Mrs. Wormwood agreeing with what Matilda is saying more than before? And who will be able to get the hat off for Mr. Wormwood? I wonder. What questions do you have? So far, I have used the question words what, how, I wonder, and when. I've also used why and who. I would like you to think of a range of question words that you could use and write down the questions that you have. Make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book after you've said them out loud. Press pause now while you make a note of your ideas, and then press play once you are ready to continue. Great. It sounds like you guys have lots of good questions, and I can't wait to read them as you email them over to the class mailbox. Let's continue. Mr. Wormwood discovered that the worst thing about having a permanent hat on his head was having to sleep in it. It was impossible to lie comfortably on the pillow. Now, do stop fussing around, his wife said to him, after he had been tossing and turning for about an hour. I expect it will be loose by the morning, and then it will slip off easily. But it wasn't loose by the morning, and it wouldn't slip off. So Mrs. Wormwood took a pair of scissors and cut the thing off his head, bit by bit, first the top and then the brim. Where the inner band had stuck to the hair all around the sides and back, she had to chop the hair right to the skin so that he finished up with a bald white ring around his head, like some sort of monk. I can imagine how crazy and silly he might have looked. And in the front, where the band had stuck directly to the bare skin, there remained a whole lot of small patches of brown leathery stuff that no amount of washing would get off. At breakfast, Matilda said to him, You must try to get those bits off your forehead, Daddy. It looks as though you've got little brown insects crawling all over you. People will think you've got lice. Be quiet, the father snapped. Just keep your nasty mouth shut, will you? All in all, it was a most satisfactory exercise, but it was surely too much to hope that it had taught the father a permanent lesson. I'm going to stop. At the end of our chapter, I have 2 final questions. What does it feel like to sleep in a hat stuck to your head with superglue? I can't imagine that. When you're sleeping, you like to be very comfortable. Imagine having a hat stuck to your head with superglue. And which character in the book will Matilda plan revenge for next? It seems as though she's been planning revenge for Mr. Wormwood at the moment, but I wonder if she's going to think of planning revenge for anybody else. What questions do you have? Remember to think of a variety of question words that you can use at the beginning. Say your ideas out loud, to an adult, to a toy, to your imaginary friend, and then make a note of your ideas on your piece of paper or in your home learning book. Press pause now to say and write your ideas, and then press play once you are ready to return again. Well done, Year 5. We've finished the end of the chapter. Tomorrow we will continue reading Matilda, and we will carry on asking questions. You could continue your list of all the questions that you have so far, and please remember that you can send these over to the class mailbox We would love to read them. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow.